Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. Love can be confusing, especially when it comes from a man who's acting like he doesn't care. You ever met a man who seems so distant, so quiet, so unavailable, yet somehow you just feel that he cares? See, that's where most people get it wrong. When a man acts distant, it doesn't always mean he's lost interest. Sometimes it means he's fighting feelings he doesn't know how to express. Men often show affection differently than women do. Distance can sometimes mean interest. You see, ladies and gentlemen, men and women were never built the same way when it comes to expressing emotions. Women are naturally open with what they feel. When they like someone, they show it through their words, their care, and their time. But men? Oh no, men operate differently. A man could be head over heels for a woman and still act like he doesn't care. It's not that he doesn't want to show affection, it's that he's wired to protect himself first. Society has told men for years that emotions are a sign of weakness, that vulnerability makes you soft. So instead of showing you he cares, he pulls back, acts distant, and makes you wonder where you stand. But don't let that fool you. Sometimes his silence is louder than words. When a man likes you, he doesn't always know how to express it the right way. He's trying to balance his feelings with his pride. He might like you so much that it scares him, and instead of leaning in, he backs away, not because you're doing something wrong, but because he's trying to manage what's going on inside. A man who's falling for someone feels something he can't control. And for some men, control is everything. Losing that means losing a sense of stability, and that's what makes him act distant. But even in his distance, you'll see signs. You'll catch him looking at you when he thinks you're not paying attention. He'll remember the small details, the way you like your coffee, your favorite song, or how you talk when you're passionate about something. That's affection disguised as distance. Now, here's the truth. Men show love through action, not always emotion. He may not say, "I miss you," but he'll check on you just to know you're okay. He may not open up easily, but he'll do little things to stay connected, sending a meme that made him think of you, or fixing something just because you mentioned it was broken. That's how a man communicates interest. It's quiet, subtle, but it's there. He doesn't want to be too forward because he's afraid of scaring you away or being rejected. So he hides it in the background, hoping you'll notice without him having to admit it outright. Ladies and gentlemen, that's why it's important not to confuse his calmness with coldness. Sometimes the quietest man in the room is the one feeling the most. The way a man shows affection might not look like what you expect, but it's still real. The distance he creates is not to push you away, but to protect his heart. So when he seems distant, look closer. Notice how he listens, how he stays aware, how he finds reasons to be near you even without saying much. That's affection in a man's language, not loud, not emotional, but deep, consistent, and real. A man's silence or withdrawal can be a sign of emotional confusion, not disinterest. Ladies and gentlemen, When a man pulls back or goes quiet, most women start to think he's losing interest or that something's wrong with them. But the truth is, sometimes that silence is not about you at all. It's about him and the storm that's happening inside his mind. Men are taught to be providers, protectors, and problem solvers. So when emotions come into play, especially feelings of love or vulnerability, it confuses them. He starts asking himself questions he's never had to face before. Do I really like her? Am I ready for this? What if I get hurt? That confusion doesn't mean he's done with you. It means he's trying to figure out what this connection truly means. See, ladies, when a man starts to feel deeply for someone, it disrupts his emotional balance. He's not used to feeling that much. Suddenly, he's thinking about you in the morning, wondering if you've eaten, missing your voice, and replaying your words in his head. That's new territory for him. So his instinct is to pull back, to process, to think. Men don't talk things out like women do. They retreat. They go into what I like to call the cave. In that cave, he's not ignoring you. He's sorting his feelings. He's deciding whether it's safe to open up, whether he's ready to let someone into his world completely. Now, a man's withdrawal can also come from fear of losing control over his emotions or fear of being misunderstood. He might think that if he opens up too soon, he'll scare you away, or worse, that you won't feel the same way. So he keeps quiet, hoping that time will help him understand what to do next. And while that silence can be frustrating, it's often the space he needs to gain clarity. You see, emotional confusion is not a weakness, it's a sign that something real is happening. Men don't get confused over something casual, they get confused when it matters. Sometimes he'll go a few days without calling and you'll think he's moved on. But then out of nowhere, he'll show up, checking on you like no time has passed. That's not inconsistency. That's him realizing he can't stay away. He's fighting his own walls, the ones he built to stay in control. The truth is, when a man truly doesn't care, he doesn't come back. But when he's confused, he always circles back because his heart keeps pulling him towards you, even when his mind says to stop. Ladies and gentlemen, that silence you hate might just be the sound of a man figuring out how to love you right. He's not pushing you away because he's cold. He's trying to understand feelings he can't explain. Emotional confusion is the space between fear and love, and when he works through it, he often comes out stronger, more certain, and ready to give his heart completely. When he likes you, he may act reserved out of fear of rejection or vulnerability. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to understand something about men. Deep down, most of us fear rejection more than anything else. We might look confident, talk big, and act like nothing can touch us, but inside, that fear of being turned down runs deep. When a man meets a woman who truly captures his attention, who makes him feel something real, that fear starts to grow. He begins to worry about what happens if she doesn't feel the same way. That's when he starts to act reserved, holding back his emotions not because he doesn't care, but because he cares too much. A man's pride is one of the most delicate things in the world. From a young age, he's taught to be strong, to never let anyone see him weak or unsure. So when love enters the picture, it shakes that foundation. Suddenly, he's not in control anymore. He's vulnerable, and that scares him. Instead of saying what he feels, he stays quiet. Instead of making a bold move, he hesitates. That hesitation is not a lack of interest. It's fear dressed as calmness. He wants to reach out. He wants to open up. But that voice in his head keeps saying, what if she doesn't feel the same? What if I embarrass myself? So he pulls back and tries to play it cool. You'll notice it in small ways. He might avoid eye contact when the moment feels too intimate. He'll compliment you, but not too much. He'll check in, but he won't linger. That's a man trying to protect his heart from being exposed. Vulnerability is something men struggle with because it's not something we're taught to handle. We can deal with pain. We can deal with failure, but emotional openness, that's a whole different kind of challenge. To admit feelings means giving someone the power to hurt you, and that's a power men don't give easily. But ladies, here's the irony. The more he likes you, the more reserved he might become. He'll overthink every word, every move. He'll try not to seem too eager because he doesn't want to come off as desperate. He'll wait for you to show a little interest first, just to feel safe enough to open up. And when you do, that's when his guard starts to lower. Slowly, he begins to trust that his feelings won't be used against him. That's when the real man shows up, the one who's funny, affectionate, attentive, and honest. But it all starts with him feeling safe from rejection. Ladies and gentlemen, when a man acts reserved, don't rush to assume he doesn't care. Sometimes that quietness is love waiting for permission to speak. It's his heart trying to find the courage to come forward without fear of being broken. Men may not always say it, but behind that calm face and measured words, there's often a storm of emotion he's too scared to reveal until he knows his feelings are safe in your hands. His actions often speak louder than his words. Look for consistency, not intensity. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships is believing words over actions. You see, words can be sweet, charming, and persuasive, but they're also easy to say. Actions, though, those take effort, time, and real intention. When a man truly likes you, he may not always say it in poetic words or dramatic gestures, but his consistency will tell the truth. The problem is too many people are addicted to intensity. They want fireworks, grand confessions, and over-the-top romance, but that's not how real feelings show up. Real interest is calm, steady, and reliable. When a man likes you, you'll see it in the little things he does over time. He remembers what matters to you, not just once, but every time. He checks in regularly, not because he feels obligated, but because he genuinely wants to know how you're doing. He keeps showing up even when life gets busy. That's consistency. That's the quiet language of real affection. Intensity might excite you for a moment, but it's consistency that proves something lasting. A man who's serious about you won't just talk about plans, he'll follow through. He'll make time, not excuses. And when he says he'll be there, he'll show up, not once to impress you, but every time because you matter. You see, a man's love doesn't always come wrapped in fancy words. It shows up in effort. It shows up when he fixes something that's been bothering you without you asking. It shows up when he listens, really listens, even when you're not talking about something exciting. A man who truly likes you doesn't need to announce his feelings. His actions make it obvious. He'll protect your peace, respect your boundaries, and stand by you even when things aren't easy. That's how you know it's real. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's the tricky part. A man who's inconsistent but intense will confuse you. One day, he'll shower you with attention, and the next, he'll disappear. That's not love. That's emotional chaos. But a man who's consistent, even if he's not overly expressive, that's someone you can trust, because real feelings don't need to rush. They grow steady. They build roots. When you find someone who shows up for you the same way on your bad days as he does on your good ones, that's the one who truly cares. Consistency means he's thinking long term. He's not trying to impress you for a week. He's trying to earn your trust for a lifetime. He wants you to feel safe, valued, and certain, not confused or anxious. So don't fall for the one who talks the loudest. Fall for the one whose actions never change. Because at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, a man's words might charm your heart, but it's his consistency that will keep it. Real attraction sometimes makes men act cautious instead of confident. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a funny thing about men. The moment they truly start to feel something real, that same confidence they once had begins to fade. You might have met a man who seemed bold, funny, charming, and sure of himself. He could talk to anyone, flirt with ease, and carry himself like he had everything under control. But then he meets you, the one who makes his heart race, the one who gets into his head, and suddenly that confidence turns into hesitation. It's not because he's lost interest, it's because he's caught off guard by how deeply he feels. When a man feels real attraction, it's not about physical beauty alone. It's emotional, it's mental, it's the connection that shakes him. He starts to think about how he looks, what he says, how you'll perceive him. He becomes more aware, more careful, more thoughtful. He doesn't want to mess it up. And that fear of making a wrong move makes him act cautious. He's no longer trying to impress just anyone. He's trying to impress you. That's why sometimes a man who's attracted to you won't chase in the usual way. He'll hold back, testing the waters, trying to read if you feel the same, because the higher the stakes, the more careful he becomes. You see, ladies and gentlemen, when attraction is real, it's not a game anymore. It's serious. It's something that could change his life. That's why he'll take his time before making a move. He'll study your reactions. He'll listen to your words closely. He'll notice how you treat people, how you handle stress, how you laugh. He's not just admiring you, he's trying to understand you. That's what cautious love looks like. It's quiet, but it's deep. Now, this cautious behavior can sometimes be misunderstood. You might think he's not interested because he doesn't flirt like other men, or because he's not moving fast enough. But what's really happening is that he's protecting something valuable, his heart. Real attraction makes him want to build something meaningful, not temporary. And before he opens up, he wants to be sure it's safe to do so. That's why he slows down. That's why he takes his time. Because for a man who's been through pain or rejection before, genuine feelings come with both excitement and fear. Ladies and gentlemen, real attraction humbles a man. It makes him second guess his every move. It softens his ego and brings out his vulnerability. The same man who once acted fearless now finds himself nervous around you. He might stumble on his words, lose his train of thought, or avoid eye contact, not because he's uninterested, but because he's overwhelmed. That's what love does. It turns confidence into caution, pride into humility. So the next time a man acts reserved around you, don't assume he's cold. Sometimes that hesitation is just love trying to find the right way to reveal itself without breaking his heart in the process. The key is to observe the subtle ways he still shows up for you, even from a distance. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most powerful truths about human connection is that love doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. When a man likes you but acts distant, his presence might not be loud, but it's steady. You have to look closer, pay attention to the quiet ways he stays connected. It's not always about constant texts, calls, or big gestures. Sometimes it's about those small, consistent signs that say, "I'm still here." That's where the truth lies, in the subtle things that are easy to overlook, but impossible to fake. When a man truly cares, he doesn't just disappear completely. Even when he pulls away, there's a string of connection that keeps him tied to you. Maybe he checks your stories online, but never comments. Maybe he asks mutual friends how you've been. Maybe he finds excuses to see you or casually brings you up in conversation. Those are not coincidences. Those are small acts of attention. His pride might keep him from reaching out directly, but his heart won't let him forget you. And that's how you know he's distant, but he's still watching, still wondering, still caring. Now, here's what makes this subtle presence so real. It's consistent. When a man is faking it, he'll disappear entirely once he gets bored. But when he genuinely likes you, he stays around in little ways that matter. He might not say much, but he listens. He might not flirt openly, but he remembers what you said weeks ago. He might not be by your side every day, but when you need help, he shows up quietly without making a scene. That's a man who's invested emotionally, but scared to expose it. He's trying to balance how he feels with how much he's willing to reveal. You see, ladies and gentlemen, distance doesn't always mean disconnection. Sometimes it's a man's way of handling feelings that overwhelm him. But the heart always leaves clues. It's in the way he looks at you when you're not looking. It's in the messages he doesn't send, but types and deletes. It's in the way he acts protective, even when he's pretending not to care. Love hides in gestures, small, unspoken acts that reveal more than any confession could. You don't have to chase it, you just have to pay attention. When a man still shows up for you, even from afar, that's not indifference, that's courage. It means his feelings are real enough to keep him near even when he's unsure how to handle them. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, it's so important to see beyond words and look at patterns. His actions, his presence, his small efforts, they tell you everything. Real connection doesn't need constant communication. It just needs consistency. So if he's distant but still finds quiet ways to care, understand that he's not gone. He's just figuring out how to love you from a safe distance until he's ready to step closer.